Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you for tuning in to Just Bleed Radio. Today's Sunday, the 23rd of March, 2025, and this is the Weekend Roundup. Hey up, geezers, and welcome to episode 46 of the Weekend Roundup. The UFC was back in Blighty on Saturday night, and London and the O2 Arena were calling. Unlike last time the UFC visited our Fair Isle, they chose to show these fights at a time when the natives would be awake, at least for the start of the card. Alright, I'm your host DangerMouse, and it's time for me to put on a fake smile and try and tell you all how good this card was. Fortunately, I'm not alone in this venture. First up, we have our enthusiastic, optimistic Californian can crusher, who I hope and pray has something good to say today. Hope he managed to slay a few beers yesterday and that he's had the chance to recover. It's no special. Hey up, Austin, how's things?
Ah, you know what? I actually had a great time watching this card. I actually had a good time last night, and despite the haters, I thought it wasn't a bad event. Now, I believe we are not on the majority of side of this, but hey, I can't complain. It wasn't bad. I had a great time, wonderful time.
A touch of the royal we there. Next up, it's our merciless Midwestern that you'll find in many an MMA chat room. And don't think for a minute that whatever ails you will matter to him for even a moment. You're all fair game. It's my co-host, it's LazyBed. Hey up, mate, how's life in the Midwest?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. I spent most of my day yesterday in the main card minute chat doing bang rips, so it wasn't bad. But I gotta say, bird brain fight IQs and boneheaded judging, it's been real London, but it hasn't been real fun.
Yeah, well said. Okay, just another couple of notes of business. You'll rarely hear me mention boxing, but heavyweight legend and undisputed champion of fat-free grilling, George Foreman, passed away on Friday, age 76. So R.I.P. Big George. Maybe, I don't know how heaven works if you believe in these things. And Muhammad Ali, of course, was a Muslim, so I don't know how that matches. But I hope if things work out, you two guys get to meet up and do whatever you do in heaven in the future. Anyway, before we get on with the fights, let me just ask you all to like, subscribe, ring the notifications bell, and leave us a comment. Now, I normally have a pretty clear idea of where I'm going when I write intros, but I'm kind of lost where to start today. Looking at this is how I imagine looking at a tray of prison food and trying to decide which pile of slop to try first. None of it looks appetizing, but I have to eat. There are a couple of fights that need discussing on the prelims, but we can pick over those bones later. Might as well get on with the main card, which opened with a featherweight bout between Nathaniel Wood and Morgan Charrier. The English versus the French. Remember, Agincourt, I cried as the fight started. And it did start off pretty great with Wood dropping Charrier very early on. Then he tried to follow him down, gets a ground pound. That didn't work out. Charrier grabbed hold of him. It ended up in grappling. Wood ended up on his back for the most of the rest of the round. Just a kind of a lack of fight IQ there, I think. He would have been far better just to stand straight back up. And then we had 2 rounds of very technical striking, lots of eyeing each other up, feinting, looking for openings. And this was one I expected a closer score on, but the judges gave it to Wood 30-27. And I suspect Austin will have enjoyed this fight. So let's hear it from him. What you got to say on this one, my friend?
Yeah, no. So I picked Charrier because, and I did enjoy the fight, but it was a 180 from what I thought was going to happen. I assumed Nathaniel Wood would be too small for Charrier to really have issues with, but I was surprisingly mistaken because Nathaniel Wood looked pretty decent size as a former bantamweight, now featherweight. He's growing into his body at featherweight, and damn, did he look good last night because he dropped him with like one of the first like exchanges, and then just didn't take his eye off the prize of taking the fight. Charrier tried. He tried to out-athlete him. He tried to grapple better. And Charrier was mixing some striking in, but just not being successful, getting clipped occasionally, just losing momentum, getting stunned, and then constantly having to reset. And Nathaniel just kept the pressure, didn't push past the point where he was going to gas, didn't keep him on his toes. He just kept him moving backwards and countered perfectly. Like, I forgot how good his boxing was. and I was assuming that the guy who was the better athlete was Morgan Chartier, when the better fighter seemed to be Nathaniel Wood, and Nathaniel Wood proved it last night. So, good for him.
That's lazy. Anything on this one?
Nathaniel Wood, man, probably my highlight of the night, really, when I stop and think about it. Didn't expect this type of performance out of him. Like Austin kind of just said, thought that Charrier was going to be a superior athlete, the quicker guy, maybe the more explosive guy, more pop on his shots. But in reality, all I kept noticing throughout the fight was just how much everything that Wood seemed to be throwing was rocking Charrier. Like the littlest things, his jabs, his small shots that typically you wouldn't think would have much impact seemed to be thudding and smacking off of the Frenchman here. And yeah, just a fucking very impressive performance for Wood, who's a really good guy. I watched a lot of his stuff with MMA On Point and some of his different things on social media, and I like his personality. Seems like a good guy. Classic battle here of the English versus the French. So always a fun fight, and one of the more I would say enjoyable watches of the night. And yeah, lots of credit and props to Wood here, who needs to drop that prospect nickname because you're getting up there in age, buddy. No longer a prospect.
Yeah, they were joking about that with Bisping at the end, weren't they? Said he'll have a new nickname for the next fight.
I hope so.
All right, next up was lightweight Chris Duncan defeating Jordan Vucinic by submission, guillotine choke, 3:42 of round 2. Vucinic was dropped pretty early by Duncan, and then the rest of the round was mostly lay and pray. Vucinic did manage to regain his feet late in the round, but Duncan simply picked him up and slammed him back to earth. Second round, again, Duncan managed to get a takedown and eventually sank in the guillotine, I think, up against the cage. Gave us the first finish on the main card. And although I know for a fact Austin will have liked this one because of all the wrestling involved, it's Lacey's turn. So what you got to say on this one, Lacey?
Yeah, man, tattoos don't win you fights. Definitely not.
Sometimes you do.
Yeah, Duncan had plenty of tattoos of his own. A lot of tattoos on this card, actually. It was a very tattoo-heavy card.
It was.
But yeah, back to the fight. Jordan Vucinic, disappointment, man. I'm very disappointed here because me, like many others, had high hopes for Vucinic coming in. A guy who put on some fucking hellacious wars during his time at Cage Warriors. Is typically a very fun and a very focused fighter, and I just felt sort of like he was lacking that yesterday. I can't really take anything away from Duncan because he went out there and he did the damn thing, especially after having what was a pretty difficult weight cut from what I've gathered. Didn't have the easiest time making the 155 limit here at 156, but went out there and put it down for the Scottish. Shout out Fuzzy Dunlop. But yeah, just my main thing here was not so much the win for Duncan, which was impressive, and it was a nice gilly, one of a couple on this card, but really just that Vucinic didn't seem to be himself, and I don't know. Maybe that's a side effect of the bright lights. I did hear coming into this, I think it was from the Fight Disciples, that this was actually his first time fighting in what they call the big room of the O2 Arena. Had fought plenty of times in the smaller portion. I don't remember what they call it, but there's a smaller room inside of the O2 where he had fought many times for Cage Warriors, but this was his first time in the big part of the arena, and it seemed like the bigger part of the arena and the big lights were a bit too much for Jordan Vucinic.
Yeah, I didn't hear that. Austin, anything on this one?
So to Lazy's point, the reason why Jordan Vucinic looked off is because he was immediately dropped at the opening exchange. So that probably threw him off. That weight cut, I didn't hear anything about the weight cut, so that actually makes more sense if you're adding that into the game plan of your opponent, where he's like, oh, he got, he had a tough weight cut. He's probably not in the best mental state, considering, when you have a tough weight cut, that usually adds to your stress. And then on top of it, you drop him. Yeah, whatever game plan you had probably went out the window, and now he's just trying to, survive. And credit to Duncan, dude. I did not pick him, but he looked fucking good, and he put the pressure on Vucinic. And I'll give credit where credit is due. When you put pressure on an opponent who's technically better than you, and you find the finish, that says a lot about your character, because that means you put more effort into trying to win the fight than your opponent could. Doesn't mean your opponent's not, good. but he pulled it out when he needed to, and credit where credit is due. Good for Duncan. Unfortunate for Vishenish. I can't say the word now, but it's confusing me. But Jordan is capable. Maybe he needs like a reset at 155 where he just faces some easier competition. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater just yet, but this is concerning considering how good we all thought he was.
Yeah. Okay then. Next up, we had women's strawweight bout. Lots of support for Molly McCann in this one. Paddy, of course, was there, but also Joanna Jędrzejczyk and my very own Dakota Ditcheva was in the crowd, although the camera didn't linger on her for too long. We were discussing that before the show started. This one featured the dancing queen, Alexia Thinera, against the queen of the spinning back fist, Meatball Molly McCann, where Thinera ended the fight and Meatball's career at 4 minutes 32 of round 1 with a rear naked choke. Now, I'm all for showing enthusiasm, but Thinera just overdid it a bit on the entry, leaving me just screaming at her to get in the cage. And I know Dave was in chat with me, and he was saying, yeah, the same thing. Just get in the cage. Let's get the fight on with. She did redeem herself by bringing my topology prediction to fruition. I picked her as getting a first-round sub against Molly, and that was one of my very few joys of the entire night. So one career ends as another one begins, which is as things should be. Are you listening, John? So thoughts on this fight and the retirement and Molly's career. Austin, it's your turn to go first.
You know what? I usually don't like the extended walk-ins, but I enjoyed it, man. I mean, she's out there having fun. Who gives a fuck? She's out there as long as she wins. That's all that matters. And the thing is that this is also a short notice fight for her, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was a week's
Very
notice,
short.
which is one of the reasons Molly gave for retiring, because she came into the cage on a week's notice and submitted her.
Yeah, and she had fun. If you can't go in there, however you need to and enjoy what you do, this is how she enjoys it. I'm not going to hold it against her. Do I like it? I'm kind of hit and miss on it sometimes, but yeah, I enjoyed. I actually started getting up and dancing when she started getting in there. I was like, yeah, let's go, yeah, But this is a sad story for Molly, because, like you guys said, and like she said, if I can't beat somebody that's coming in as a replacement on a week's notice, what am I doing? I guess, and I don't hold it against her for kind of being thrusted into the position that she was. Her and Patty kind of came in at the same time, and she's struggled ever since. I mean, she's gotten great performances against very, very basic opponents and looked good. But the minute she steps up in competition, she gets run over. And this was a situation where the replacement in Thainara, is that how you say it?
Yeah, I believe so.
She just showed up and did what she needed to do. And that's all you can ask of her. Unfortunately, it just happened to be against someone who should have been able to perform better. And considering that she's been a several-time veteran in this position, and you know what? She says she's calling it a career, and I have no ill will against fighters saying, you know what, if I can't do this at the highest level, I don't want to do this. Good for her, man, because that's not easy to do. I mean, hell, we've seen the downfall of BJ Penn, Tony Ferguson, many others, and it never gets easy to watch guys that you care about like lose on a regular basis. Fighters that you care about wanting to, continue to try to get that one last win. And she said, you know what, I think I'm done. And I'm going to say this with all sincerity. I appreciated her being what she was, someone who was given an opportunity and tried to make the best of it. And good on her retiring. And I hope to never see you fight again. Just sincerely, like not as a negative, but I hope you find something else to do.
Yeah, I think it was well said. I think what she said was very well said as well. And to get to do it in London was probably about as good a place as she could have ever hoped to end a career, even if it was on a loss. So yeah, well stepped down. Lazy, anything to add on this one?
Well, now that sentimental hour is over, you freaking pansies. Let's keep it real here. The meatball has expired. The meat has gone bad. It smells good.
Just before we go on there, I will point out that she has the most performance awards in strawweight.
Hey, good for her. That's not a fucking hard feat to accomplish. Anyhow, yeah, the meat has gone rancid, fellas. The meat has gone rancid. It is what it is. She said it herself afterwards in her little post-fight interview with Charlie Arnold, and she said that she got to where she was and she made it around the world on a left hook and a spinning back fist. That's absolutely fucking right. That's all you got in your tool bag, and it showed every time you got in there with anybody who had any ounce of fucking some sort of pushback to give you. You capitalized on it while you could. But look at this fucking fall from grace when just a couple of fucking years ago, she was prancing around the cage with a bottle of Hallerhead with Patty the Batty, and she was supposed to be the next big thing, and she was getting this big promotional push, while other women, more deserving women, women that actually fucking earned their places and should have been getting that push, were not, and were being set aside so that somebody like her, who had a momentary flash in the pan of fame and fortune, I guess you would call it, could get this undeserved coddling and recognition from the promotion. I think that she is a beneficiary of timing, a beneficiary of a couple of fortunate moments, and I'm glad that she has other business ventures outside of fighting already, because this was not a field that she should have ever tried to rise to the cream of the crop in. This was not her game. And yeah, Molly the meatball. Uh, I guess it was good while you were here, but yeah. See you later. Peace.
God, God damn, just fucking bury her while she's still breathing. Jesus.
Well, I warned you in the intro that Lazy is merciless, so there we heard it.
Hey, the fucking walkout for Thainara lasted longer than the fight.
That's not far wrong, yeah.
I was
forgive me.
entertained. Come on.
Yeah, forgive me,
Hey,
hating it. It just went on just a little bit too long. I enjoyed it. It just went on a little bit too long. That's all I say.
hey, she's the only person at the weekend to rival the length of Yoel Romero's walkout and Mike Perry's dirty boxing. Shout out.
Jesus.
All right. Next up, we had a fight with draft implications. Gunnar Nelson making a return after a 2-year absence, and Kevin Holland returning after, 2-month absence, something like that. This fight did give me my favourite photograph of the night, which I'm looking at right now, when Nelson stood up, picking up Holland while they were wrapped in some kind of partial kimura. It's very amusing, chatting away and smiling at each other. Yeah, this one looked to be going the way of so many of Holland's fights in round one, but he landed a stunning blow near the end of the round that almost finished the fight there and then. Nelson did manage to stand up and he tottered off to his stool on very wobbly legs. Next 2 rounds, very scrappy back and forth affairs, a mix up between striking and grappling. Somehow Holland won a performance of the night bonus, which, if Dave's maths are right, it gives him 30 points, takes him to 65 points and 3rd place in the draft, dumping Austin into 4th place for now. Suck it, Austin.
Eat shit.
So another unpredictable performance from Holland. Does this prove that he really should just stay at welterweight? Or should he just keep on fighting whenever and wherever he wants? He said he'll fight at welterweight in July, next week if it's middleweight. Lazy, thoughts on this? The fight, whatever?
Yeah, it does fucking prove that he should stay at welterweight. That was the very first thing that I wrote down. Kev, stay at fucking 170. But show some discipline. Stop eating so many steaks and stick around at a weight class that actually suits you. The proof was in the fucking pudding with his performance last night. That when this guy is at a weight that actually fits his frame, he's a hell of a fucking fighter. These are the type of performances that we get from Kev, where you look at it and you're like, man, have I been underrating this guy? Like, have I been kind of sleeping on how good he actually is? No, you haven't. But when he fights at fucking middleweight and the guys outweigh him by 30, 40 pounds, he looks like shit. Like, it's just fucking common sense. So any amount of extra money that he's making by bouncing back and forth between welterweight and middleweight and taking these fights on short notice and shit, you could equal that money, if not fucking double it, if you actually stay at 170 where it makes sense and sustain a goddamn winning streak. Like, stop trading wins and losses for the sake of activity and actually stick at a weight 170 where your frame is a benefit, you're taller and longer than a lot of guys. You clearly could see last night that his length and strength and the combination of those two things presented a lot of problems, even for a fucking accomplished jiu-jitsu guy like Gunnar Nelson, somebody who is highly accredited, you know, across multiple fields of BJJ. And he looked at moments out of his element with Kevin Holland down there. And that's not something we often say for Kevin Holland in a grappling scenario. Last night, he looked like he actually was a BJJ black belt. So, yeah, I think it's pretty fucking clear that he should stay at 170. Now, for Gunnar Nelson, 2 years of inactivity, you can't fucking do that at this point in the game. Like, I don't care how good you are or how skilled you are in any one field of MMA, you can't take 2 years off. Game evolves too quick. Guys are too good. That's his bad. And I don't know if we ever see Gunnar Nelson again. That could be the end of the road for him, and he could be one of those guys that retires without any hoopla or flowers at all. So could be the last we see of Gunnar Nelson. If you're Kevin Holland and I'm his management, I'm begging this fucking guy stay at 170.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and yeah, could be the last we see of Gunnar. Although he's popular in London, so you never know. Austin, what you got to say on this one?
Kevin Holland is a product of the modern day UFC matchmaking system. Availability is the best, payability. You want to get paid? Be available. And unfortunately, that proves how he fights. He doesn't care if it's like he said, if you want me to fight sooner, I could fight up at middleweight. If you want me to, actually take some time to make 170 and matchmake me in this division, they just give me a little bit more time. He'll take the easier money, which is the middleweight money. He doesn't care. But if someone's in his corner that can tell him, hey, the easier path to the title is staying at 170, where you seem to be better matched with these guys here. Middleweight is interesting because it's a striker's division with really good grapplers, and he can't seem to get past some of the grapplers. Whereas welterweight, it's a good mix of strikers and grapplers, but he's got a better frame for the division. So you can see it play out in this fight. Gunnar Nelson taking 2 years off probably doesn't help the math on this one, but it shows he's capable. It's just a matter of, all right, can you stay consistent enough in this division to get on a win streak? He can. He was. He just got to, get back to the drawing board. I mean, Lazy said it best. He just looked like he actually cared about being a contender in this division. Whereas at middleweight, he's just kind of taking whatever comes first. So if I'm in Kevin Holland's corner, I'm telling him, hey, just take a month or two off, and then we come back at welterweight. But knowing Kevin Holland, he's probably going to take a middleweight fight for some random reason, and we're going to regret it.
Two last little things I want to add in real quick before we move on from this one. One, I completely misread, Kevin Holland leading up to this fight because, again, to reference back to Fight Disciples, I heard Nick Pete say that when they went to do their media day interview with Kevin Holland, he was completely disinterested, didn't want to be there, to the point where he said, like, I don't want to be in London. It's my first time here. I don't care about it. I have no interest in being here. Like, he just wanted to fucking, like, leave and get the fuck out of here. I thought that meant he was going to be disinterested in the fight, like he often is. Nope. I think that was actually him being focused on the fight for once. And we see what happens when Kevin Holland is actually focused. And then the other thing that I think has to be brought up, that fight probably should have been stopped at the end of the first round. Gunnar Nelson was pretty much out cold and maybe got woke up again by some of that ground and pound. And I think that any other referee would have stopped that. And I think Mark Goddard might have showed a little bit of bias towards Gunnar Nelson there.
Yeah, interesting. I think Gunnar probably needed some new mats for his gym. That's what I thought. So on to the co-main, which I fell asleep in the middle of. A very tippy-tappy point-scoring affair where Carlos Ulberg defeated Jan Blachowicz by unanimous decision. Some controversy on this one. I did get back to rewatch it again this afternoon, by the way. So let's hear Austin's thoughts. What do you think of the fight? Who did you have winning?
I leaned towards Jan Blachowicz, but Carlos Ulberg did probably do enough. And I hate saying that because the man who tore his shoulder and was out for almost 2 years, former champion. He was the guy he almost kind of looked to be, where he was patient. He didn't rush in, and he took a decent amount of of Olberg's punches and didn't get wobbled or scared. He looked like the guy who you expected to come back, former champion, taking on a contender, new prospect, right? Olberg is probably, this is the second time now where he's gone the distance with the guy and has shown limitations in his game. Granted, the fight didn't go to the mat and the fight was not fast paced, but there's this possibility of Olberg being the next guy in line for the title. Last night, I didn't see it, but I can see where he can improve, and I can see where he can give the two guys that are in the title discussion currently, where it's Alex and Ankalaev, and possibly give them some problems. But I didn't think he was ready for a title fight just yet. So who knows? I personally, I could have scored it either way, but I felt like both men proved their points of, Jan not being done at the top, but not being at his best anymore. And Olberg showing some weaknesses in his game that other fighters can exploit. And right now, it's just this is one of those things where it's like, this is the state of the division. Is it great? No, but it's not. It's not like heavyweight where it's a barren wasteland.
Lazy, what you got on this one?
Well, firstly, disappointment. I really wanted Polish power, the pierogi power to get it done here. Was really rooting for Jan. I was thinking that he was going to come back, with 2 new surgically repaired shoulders and be bionic Blachowicz, but it did not go down that way. This fight honestly sucked. No real exciting moments. It was, I guess you could say a tit for tat back and forth affair, but not with much urgency or much direness or eagerness to finish the fight on either man's part. Really, in reality, I feel like you could score this fight any way you wanted to, and I'm not going to be mad at you. You could score it for Jan, and I'm not going to be mad at you. You could score it for Olberg. I'm not going to be mad. Mix the rounds up any way you want to have them. It could have gone any way. It was that kind of fight, and you really can't, if you're on either side of this coin, be disappointed. And that kind of just speaks to neither man taking the fucking bull by the horns and stealing the fight. There was moments all throughout, especially that third and final round, where I think that either guy could have stolen the fight away, and neither one really chose to. So it is what it is in that department. I think that the most interesting thing of this fight is really just kind of what happens going forward with the two of them. For Jan at 42, in his state, obviously I think he can and probably will stick around a little bit longer. But you just start matching him, downwards in the division and making him start taking some fights that are maybe less appealing to him. And then for Olberg, I kind of think that you got to give him Yuri, because despite the nice win and the good showing in his last fight, Yuri, obviously, he's not getting a third crack at Alex again should he win against Ankalaev in their rematch. Or I don't think that they slot him in immediately versus Ank either, should he beat Alex for a second time. So I think that you give Mr. Olberg there a shot to get in there with Yuri, and I think that that'll be a fun and exciting fight to really establish kind of a number one contender. Only problem with that is it leaves Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree sort of on the outs for the winner of their fight. But it's just an interesting situation to see how things shake out at the top of this light heavyweight division.
Yeah. Olberg, Yuri, that could be a fun fight. I would agree with that. Gatekeeper time for Jan, it looks that way.
Yeah.
All I was going to say about Ulbrecht is he's 34, but he hasn't really had very many fights. That's the one thing you can say for him. He doesn't have much mileage.
And if he loses, you burn a contender.
Yeah.
I suppose so.
Yeah, he does always kind of have the option to just kind of hang around and be that guy that's on a win streak and ready to go should they need to slot somebody into an important fight. But it's gonna be a while before he does get an opportunity if he's trying to wait for a title shot or something.
Yeah. All right, on to the main event, which I woke up for late into round 1. I watched Brady maul Leon for most of round 2, and by round 3, I was begging for Brady just to end mine and Leon's suffering, which fortunately he did in round 4. Round 3 of this fight, after being out-wrestled for the last 5 minutes, Leon decides to hurl himself from way out to try and get a takedown. At the start of the round, ends up being controlled for 4 minutes 57 seconds of the round. Doesn't land a strike, doesn't do anything that can be scored for the round. Luke Thomas was having a field day about this. If trainers want to show fighters what not to do in a fight, they now have the perfect example to show them. Outside of round 1, this was just a horrible, lifeless, lackluster performance by Leon, framed by an excellent, probably the best of his career performance by Brady. He was the first person to stop Leon Edwards. Total domination, totally deserved. And so, as you picked Brady, let's hear your thoughts on the fight and what's next for Brady. Who does he fight next, Lazy?
Yeah, Sean Brady, dude. This guy, he really still growing, which is crazy to say when you have a guy that's shown to be as dominating of a force. There's really no other word for it, as he has already, and to be still continuing to get better is pretty impressive. Leon Edwards doesn't have the fire inside, guys. He doesn't have the dog. He doesn't have the drive and the determination to get up when he needs to get up, when the times are tough, when the going gets hard. It's not possible to get a rousing corner speech that's going to fire you up and get the troops up and ready to go between rounds every time. It's not possible. Like, sometimes you got to dig down inside of yourself and you got to find, whatever it fucking takes to motivate you to do what you need to do. And he just wasn't able to do that. Sean completely fucking blanking Leon in round 2, the zeros across the board. He accomplished nothing. And then Brady also within that round 2, 4:57 in control time. 4:57? Like, are you kidding me? Just incredible. Like, fucking domination, top to bottom. Did what he wanted to. Ragdolled Leon. Most impressive thing from Leon all night was his bald spot. The bald spot that just stared a hole into my soul for the entirety of the fight. It was like the eye of Sauron out there. I could feel it following me like an Edgar Allan Poe story. It was terrifying.
Oh my god.
Go to Turkey or shave your head. Pick one. But yeah, Sean Brady, phenomenal win. Philly, you got one here. Unfortunately, when he meets Bilal again, he's just going to have the same fate that he had the first time, should he meet Bilal again. But yeah, big win, and obviously sitting atop the division now.
Well, what's next for him, though? Obviously, you can't get a championship shot just yet because Shavkat's next in line, presuming that JDM doesn't take the title.
Give him Joaquin Buckley.
Yeah.
If he has to fight in the meantime while he waits, give him Joaquin Buckley. Although he might have leapfrogged Shavkat with that performance. Don't be surprised.
I think Shavkat's pretty nailed in for that one. Okay, Austin, as you join me in the misery of picking Leon for this fight, what were your thoughts on his performance and what's next for Leon? How does he drag himself out of the pit that he's fallen into? Who does he fight next? And do we just need to see him in action in a striking match to get him back on track in some way?
Oh, God. I hate it when Lazy's right. Because he's right. He had no fire. I had more energy than goddamn Leon did, and I'm in there fucking yelling at the goddamn screen to fight off the cage, and he willingly went back into the goddamn clinches 5 times. I think it counted in like the first round where he's like he's not putting pressure. I had the first round for him, and I might be a little bit like off on some of this, but in my opinion, it looked like he took I think I know how to do this better than the guy who's only a wrestler to heart. And he completely miscalculated, because was it the third round where he willingly goes in on a shot and then literally loses the entirety of the round? Like, you lost the second handily right off the bat. Sean Brady doesn't give you an inch. He just grabs you in the second. In the minute he has you up on his shoulders, you're on the mat. And it's pretty clear you're not able to get up. At the first round, he's he's winning in the exchanges, but not outright winning the round, which is a problem, right? The guy who has limited striking and decent boxing should not be beating you because you are the better striker overall. You are circling around, but you're not pressing the action. Typical Leon Edwards fight IQ. I do not need to do much, but if I do, I'm just going to bide my time and wait to counter. Look for openings occasionally look for the clinch. You can't do that against this guy. It showed, because in the third round, that's when it's like, okay, we're pressing forward. We're going to do the thing. We're fighting the grappling gap. We just had a really shitty round that could have been scored at 10-8 in the second. And right now, we're not even sure if we won the first. He goes for a shot, and I'm yelling at the goddamn TV thinking, what the fuck are you doing? I feel like a goddamn wrestling coach who's yelling at his guy, no, don't take the shot. He's going to sprawl on you. You got to fucking chuck the hand to get behind him. No, he doesn't. He just stays there. So he's losing the grappling, and then you just see this look of like, oh, fuck. Like, the fight is gone out of him. And Brady's doing what he wants to. And as far as Luke Thomas is concerned, if the other guy can't fucking do anything, you can't blame the dude for sticking to what he needs to do. Get the fuck out of here, Luke. And on top of it, this is pure dominance by virtue of Sean just needing to do whatever he needed to do. I mean, he was outright this reminded me of the Kevin Gastelum fight, where he just dominated every second of it. The minute that it was on the ground, it didn't look competitive. And then when he gets the finish and you see Leon fighting, the minute that I saw the hand get locked in and you see Leon just struggling, it just like it personally, it made me feel like, damn, okay, maybe Leon has kind of lost touch with being the best in the division, because that's what it was. He was the best, and he let a guy who had no business beating him beat him because he thought he could kind of coast with, just doing the bare minimum. And unfortunately, now he's looking back at it, and he has to kind of deal with the consequences of that. As far as Brady is concerned, Brady looked magnificent. He had great striking when it counted. He didn't give up on the ability to want to stand, but the minute that he needed to, he flipped the switch, took the mat, and he just managed to manhandle Leon. And that's what you need to do. If you're going to be dominant, you need to look for finishes, and he did both. As far as what we do with both of them, I say chuck Leon in with Joaquin Buckley and put Sean Brady up against another man who was undefeated and just lost against Shavkat, again, Ian Gary. Title eliminator, right there. That's what you need to do with him. If he beats Ian Gary, he's on a 3-fight win streak, and he's next in line after Shavkat. Do not fight anybody else after that.
Yeah, I like that. I like the thought of Ian Gary going through that.
I do got another interesting little tidbit to throw in here. Actually, two of them. First one, Sean Brady saying after the fight that he was 198 backstage walking out to the fight. That's a big motherfucker, so he might be short, but that dude carries some heft in there with him. So he must feel like a fucking ton of bricks on top of you. And then second, it's fucking hilarious. Sean said after the fight that when Leon shot that takedown, that fucking terrible Fight IQ takedown, he actually said, like, as he was shooting the takedown audibly, and Sean heard him, "Oh fuck!" So like he knew when he shot that takedown, he made a stupid, terrible decision.
God damn it, Leon!
Oh fuck!
Yeah. But Brady was like, "Oh, you're a wrestler now." Jesus. All right, well, that is the main card dealt with, thankfully. Prelims started with Kyle Fernandez defeating Guram Kutateladze by unanimous decision, 30-27 across all three judges' cards. This was actually a fun fight to start the night. Austin was the only person on the Discord to pick Fernandez, who looked great from the off. He stunned Kutateladze with a head kick and then proceeded to work over his front leg that was looking very marked up by the end of round one. In round two, Fernandez scored a knockdown by a leg kick that caused Kutateladze to switch stances. So then Fernandez just started working over that leg instead, and he ended up getting another leg kick knocked down late in round 3. I love a leg kick stoppage, so I was cheering Fernandez on despite not picking him. He couldn't quite get a finish, but it was a clear 30-27, and so I suppose I have to let Austin have his moment on this one.
My only reasoning for this is because the man who won the fight, Fernandez, he gave me feelings of watching what happened with Guram. I'll just go with his first name because I can't really say the last one. Guram, he got knocked out by one of the other lightweights that fights out of the
Brazil? Shooter box?
Yes, thank you. I couldn't remember the name of the camp where they all just kind of like, because one of the fighters was on the card for tonight. He basically took the fight to him when Guram couldn't figure out what to do, and then gave him the perfect range. And that's the only reason why I looked at it was like, okay, the last time a guy who took the fight to him and then kickboxed him finished him. This guy literally did the same thing, except he couldn't finish him because he was so lackadaisical in striking at the end of the fight, because I think he took this also on short notice. So Guram used to be the guy that we all thought was a killer in this division. And then quickly that turned out to be not the case, because he trained with Shafkat and whatnot, and he's also out of Georgia. But this proves the point where it's like, if you can take the fight away from him right off the bat, and then you just kickbox him from range, he has nothing. He can't take you down because this guy also had great takedown defense, and that proved the point. That was the only reason why I picked him, and I was glad I picked him. Also to prove all the other guys wrong. I love being the guy that picks the one guy who nobody picks.
No, of course you do. Anything quickly to add, Lazy? Because I think we're rushing towards an end there.
Yeah, just Cowboy Fernandez basically beat the shit out of Guram Kutateladze here. GC from the Ariel Helwani show, as many know him, just couldn't get it done. Looked off from the very beginning, and I think that's just all due to Fernandez. So all credit to him. Now up to 10-2, possible contender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he looked good. Keep an eye on him now. Next up was Cowlan Loughran, 29-28, 29-28, defeating Nathan Fletcher by split decision. I thought that Fletcher had won this one.
One of the controversial decisions of the night. I think a lot of people thought that Fletcher had won. I personally, for one, wasn't mad because I was on the Cowlan Loughran side. But yeah, the only thing I'll say about this one is the fucking melon on Loughran, man. Those big Irish heads, they're fucking huge.
Yeah. I saw you were joking about that one, the taking a pillow from the couch to lay on or something. Anything quick on this one?
Yeah, no, I thought this was a bad decision, but I didn't think it was an outright robbery. I just thought it was a bad decision. Loughran showed up, and Fletcher put on a great fight that I thought he won.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it was up to the ladies to bring us our first finish. Sean and Bannon demonstrating Olympic Taekwondo in the cage, spending more time hopping on one leg than the Karate Kid in his final bout. By round 2, Tomar had figured things out a little and cracked Bannon with a head kick, sending her stunned to the floor. Shona, though, was able to keep enough of her wits about her to snatch up an armbar and then snatch up another armbar moments later and finish the fight off. Apart from Bannon's tan, is there anything to say about this one?
Damn
it.
Stole my fucking line. I was gonna say, before anyone has anything to say, it is completely natural for an Irish woman to have tangerine colored skin and ashen blonde hair. Totally natural. Yeah, man. Weird fucking style to try to translate to MMA. Clearly a point kickboxing style. Kind of weird. Obviously, he's gonna get her into some trouble down the line. Got her into some trouble already. A stupid move by Tomar. Just one of the many with horrible fight IQ throughout this card. Just gave away her arm, said, "Here, have my arm, take it." I'm sorry, Left Hook Larry, for your loss here for Indian MMA.
Austin.
Yeah, no, he's right. I have no hope for Shauna Bannon, mainly because she presented herself very openly with the chin, and Pooja almost knocked her out on the feet twice and then landed the head kick that should have just been a walk-off KO. But she decided to go in and tried to do ground and pound, and then walked into submission. So she has no one to blame but herself on this one. Bannon just looks like a person who's trying to do the one thing and then forgets about the rest of it. Thankfully, she has a black belt, I guess, or something like that in jiu-jitsu. So, good for her, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, clearly must have. Next up, we had Christian Leroy Duncan defeats Andrei Puliev by unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, and a rare 30-26. Very dominant performance by CLD with, as I've just pointed out, one judge giving him a 10-8 in round 3. I'm not sure why someone with striking as good as he has seems to always push too far and end up getting his opponent up against the cage, and then he falls into that cage grappling. So anything quickly to say on this one? It was a very, very dominant performance. Can't really fault it, apart from those little niggles I've pointed out.
No, and the point of this one is that this is where you need to give guys like Leroy the ability to just style on certain opponents. This was like, it should have been honestly a finish in a third at the end of the fight, but neither here nor there. This was just a great performance for Duncan, and nothing you could take away from him other than the style where he just clashes in. I think that's a byproduct of his style, but hey, as long as you're winning, you're winning. You can figure out the little details later.
Lazy, anything to add?
Yeah, pretty dominant performance, like you said. But I feel like that was kind of what everybody thought he was going to do and what he was expected to do. He was a heavy favorite coming into this fight. Puliev was a big underdog. CLD, who I was super high on when he came in, I've kind of fizzled out on my excitement levels for his future. But he's a good guy. He does have potential. And yeah, we'll see what they can do with him going forward. One of two Chris Duncans to compete and win on this card.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I saw the parlay on MCM. Yeah, onto the other fight on the card with draft implications. I think the MMA gods must have mixed up what I asked for, because Dave won and received a performance bonus for Haaland, and I was robbed and only gained 5 points when Marcin Tybura defeated Mick Parkin by unanimous decision, 29-28. Across all 3 cards, of course. I thought that Mick Parkin won that fight. So did Dave, and he picked Tybura. So instead of taking the lead in the draft, I find myself jostling on the top position with Lazy at 90 points each. At least I'm not down with Austin. Any thoughts on this one, guys? Who did you have winning?
Son of a bitch.
I'll
go first.
Yeah, I heard you talking all the shit when I was out having a smoke. Don't you?
I'm just saying, yeah, I'm glad you lost, son of a bitch. But first, I did think Parkin won. I think this was kind of a weird one. The heavyweight's weird. This was like the second card of the night, or one of the weird judging criteria bullshit that we usually have to argue about. I thought the wrong guy won, but wasn't the best fight either. So Marcin Tybura, congrats, I guess. I don't know. This was weird. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I was on the Tybura side here, so I'm not exactly upset that he got the decision. And it doesn't pain me to see DangerMouse not get many points. His consolation 5 points, as I pointed out on Discord over a week ago. Enjoy your 5 points, DangerMouse. Ha!
5 points is 5 points.
But yeah,
at least I didn't lose 5 points, motherfucker.
Oh, I see. Yeah, nice. But yeah, really, I mean, it was another one of those fights that it wasn't entirely too clear either way. So unless you had a dog in the fight, you can't get too mad about it. But I didn't expect this. I thought Marcin was going to take Mick down and lay some ground upon him, and that did not happen. So kudos to Mick for hanging with somebody like Tybura, who is criminally underrated in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, and out of contract, as we were talking about beforehand.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't lose him. They can't afford to. Next up, we had Lonia Kavanagh defeating Felipe Dos Santos by unanimous decision, 29-28 across all 3 judges' cards. This was a bloodbath in round 2 with Kavanagh having all the top control. I think he got a cut across the top of his hairline and it just spewed blood for the entire fight. The JBR award for bloodbath of the night. Then we had Dos Santos. While he was on his back, he was up kicking. And when Kavanagh was clearly grounded, and then we had the ref giving several warnings, and then the position changed, and Dos Santos started delivering elbows to Kavanagh's spine, and the referee warned him on that one. Earlier on in the round, we'd had fence grabs. But what the fuck does it take for a referee to take a point in a fight? So yeah, what we got to say on this one?
You just basically, you took the words out of my mouth. The amount of infractions and fouls in this fight was kind of eye-opening. This was, I believe this was the referee who actually also looks like GC from the Ariel Helwani show. So Lucas Basaki, I think is his name, if I'm not mistaken. He's not on many UFC cards, but he is typically on every one when they go over to Europe. Just kind of weird officiating. The fence grabs especially, there was literally 3 warnings for fence grabbing within a 30-second span. Did nothing about it. 3 fucking warnings in 30 seconds. Kind of outlandish. But yeah, one of the more fun fights of the night. Enjoyed all the blood. And then the last thing I'll say is something that I said in the main card minute chat. A cut along the hairline is a bittersweet thing for a bald man like me. On one hand, I enjoy it because it's another fella that's one step closer to being bald, much like I, but it also pains me to see a beautiful hairline like Kavanaugh's take a cut like that because I know it's going to scar. So, good fight.
Austin?
Yeah, the biggest thing was he did the fence grabs, then did 2 up kick things when he was on his knee. Kavanaugh was on his knees. Like Santos was like, yeah, this is fine, right? Because he warns him and then he does it again, and then Kavanaugh gets him back down to the gets him against the cage, and then the elbow to the spine was interesting because it looked like he was looking for a place to hit, then just said, this should be fine. And then the ref, out of all of the multiple fouls that could have been where the ref actually pulls a point, this is the one where it's like it looks deliberate and it looks like he just doesn't understand why he's being told not to do it. And the ref says, hey, that's another warning. Like, hey, no. At that point, there should have been at least 2-point deductions in this fucking round. But whatever. The right guy won. Kavanaugh survives their first round after nearly getting finished on the feet. And then just, hard knuckles and wrestles his way to a win. Good for him. Tricky opponent. It doesn't always, help when the opponent cheats. But this is why cheaters don't prosper, you fucking idiots.
Yeah, everyone was happy to see him lose that one.
Yes.
All right, next up, we had Chris Padilla defeating Jai Herbert by split decision, 29-28, 29-28, and 1 round 29-28 to Herbert. Uninspiring round 1. I'm literally reading my notes that I have down here. Round 2, Herbert landed a head kick, a pretty solid one. Padilla has it on unofficial numbers. By early round 3, I've mentally switched off for this trash. There was some blood drawn in the last 30 seconds. At least I saw that. Anybody got anything to say about this one?
So I thought Jai Herbert won. I thought it wasn't a terrible showing from Jai Herbert. He did get stunned, but he looked good considering. And also the elbow at the end, neither here nor there. He just kind of it waited too long to finally get going. And I think that's the problem, is that there wasn't enough action to actively score on in this fight. This was Jai Herbert's fight to lose, and unfortunately, he just let the fight get taken away. I guess I don't know how, but it's unfortunate that it was not entertaining for most. I thought it wasn't a terrible fight, but I can understand why. It sucks for Jai Herbert. That's all.
What is it?
Yeah, basically same thing. Just another, much like so many other fights on this card, a flat performance. I expected more from Taco here. Padilla, I thought that he was going to really kind of bring it and put a hurting on Herbert, much like he did to his opponent in his previous fight leading up to this one, but didn't do it. Looked flat-footed all night. Looked like he couldn't quite get into second gear, and yeah, that was just a common theme of this card. Guys that couldn't quite get up and couldn't quite get it up and couldn't quite get a finish.
Okay. Yeah, this was a fight card where there was no fight of the night, no bonus was awarded. Performers of the night went to Sean Brady, Kevin Holland, Alexia Thinera, and Shauna Bannon. And that means it's time to rate this card. And I'm going to let you guys decide if I go first or last. Do you want
First.
optimism?
Put
or
mouse.
not?
Yeah, mouse goes first. Mouse goes first.
Mouse goes first. Okie dokie. My worst rating for a card was last week with 5.25, and I was monumentally unimpressed with this card. So I'm just going to go 4.99 to break that 5 barrier.
Jesus Christ.
I just didn't enjoy
Yeah.
it. Sorry. I rewatched the main card this afternoon. I didn't enjoy that either for the most part.
Does that mean I have to save our rating average on this one? Because I know if we
Well, we can
I
either
know-
let
I know what Lazy's
lazy
gonna do.
maul it, or you can be optimistic in the middle.
I'm gonna say I didn't hate the prelims. I didn't hate the main card. I love it when they go to an atmosphere that feels like they don't go there very often, and the fans bring up the energy in the arena. I like that. The fights could have been hit or miss, whatever, but I didn't hate them as much as I heard people complaining about this card. And us have our differences, opinions here. I enjoyed the card, especially the main event. For me yelling at the TV against Leon when I picked him, but I can't take anything from Sean Brady. Finishes here and there, but decent scraps. I'm gonna say I'm gonna give this a 7 because I'm not a hater. I have to bring up the positivity here. God forbid.
Golly, a 7?
I mean, you can hate the card, that's fine, but they're at least on the road trying. This isn't a fucking Apex card. Come on.
Okay, all right. Well, see, that really, this being a road card is half my problem here because, one, I was expecting more from the name value on this card. I like a lot of these fighters. I thought a lot of these matchups were well done. I thought they were well made. I thought that we were going to get far more competitive, fun fights, far more fights where guys were surging off of energy. I thought that you brought up the fucking arena, Austin. I thought that the crowd was going to bring it more. I'm used to the O2 being raucous and those fucking people blowing the roof off the gaff, as they say, and that was not happening. The people couldn't get going. The fighters couldn't get going. It seemed like all night there was just some kind of a disconnect, but like, I don't know. I thought there was going to be a lot of excitement throughout this night, and it just didn't happen. There was not much of a single moment that got me up. The main event, I will say, saved it in the very end because it was nice to see a finish. It was nice to see something that we hadn't seen before in Leon Edwards getting submitted. So yeah, that kind of added a little bit to it, but all in all, man, this card just did not do it for me. So they're saved from another 4, but they're only getting a 4.5.
Oh, he's outdone me again.
Oh, thank God, because I was gonna say I went second because I mean, Jesus, y'all just a bunch of haters.
Hey, it is what it is. Haters gonna hate.
I guess so.
Okay, that just about wraps it up from dreary London town. If that's the best the UFC can give me, I'll just have to wait until Dakota fights in Manchester to give me some English MMA I can enjoy. The weekend roundup will be back next week with LazyBed hosting to cover the fights from Mexico City when flyweights Brandon Moreno and Steve Erceg headline the action. Until then, I've been DM, they've been Austin and Lazy, and we are out of here because I need a drink after that. See ya.
Bing rips.
Yeah.
Hey.
I think we might just about sneak that in that Dave can cut it down to an hour there. I'm hoping so.
Oh yeah, no.
When else? Also, Joanna Judge.